Discover the miraculous faith that shocks Satan. 7 transforming prayers for divine blessings. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The sacred vessels of the house of God were carried away to Babylon, and among those taken captive were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, young men of noble birth, full of wisdom and understanding. As they entered the thriving city of Babylon, with its lavish temples and the intoxicating aroma of incense swirling around them, the weight of their calling pressed heavily upon Daniel. He yearned to remain steadfast in faith to Yahweh, the God of his forefathers, even as the splendor and pagan customs of Babylon surrounded them. Inside the royal palace, the court glistened with opulence, starkly contrasting Daniel's upbringing in Jerusalem. At the king's royal table, rich foods and fine wines were laid before them, delicacies that violated the law of Moses. The temptation to indulge was fierce, yet Daniel's heart was resolute. To partake would mean betraying the covenant with God. Instead, he sought divine wisdom, pouring out fervent prayers in the solitude of an upper room, facing Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he cried out to the Eternal One, longing for strength and guidance. As word of Daniel's devotion spread, whispers filled the marble halls of the palace. Other officials, seething with jealousy, conspired against him, eyeing his unwavering faith with malice. When King Darius decreed that for 30 days no one might pray to any god or man except himself, Daniel faced a grave dilemma. Would he bow to the whims of man or remain true to his God? With courage ignited within him, Daniel opted for fidelity. Lifting his hands to the heavens, he prayed boldly, echoing the cries of his ancestors even as the decree rang in his ears. The tension heightened, for Daniel's prayers did not go unnoticed. With malice brewing beneath their smiles, his adversaries watched from the shadows. Surely they would have their evidence of disobedience. Day after day, he prayed, and with each prayer, his faith not only challenged earthly authority, but also reverberated through the spiritual realm. The pitiless enemies informed the king of Daniel's defiance, and the decree could not be undone. Our noble Daniel stood accused, yet hope flickered even in the face of impending doom. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Bound and cast into the den of lions, darkness enveloped Daniel. The relentless growls of the beasts echoed fiercely, yet in that dreadful moment, he held firmly to God's promise, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Closing his eyes, he surrendered to the profound silence around him, knowing that the God he served would act on his behalf. The night deepened, shrouding Daniel in an enveloping stillness. As the dawn approached, whispers of divine intervention stirred within the celestial realms. Would God silence the roars of the lions and show forth his glory, proving that the power of prayer transcends even the fiercest of trials? The sun's first rays hinted at a miraculous fate, a spark of hope igniting anticipation. Daniel's steady spirit, tested through fire, awaited to inspire and embolden all those captive souls around him. How could faith triumph over trials and evoke the impossible? The dawn lingered on the horizon, whispering of deliverance yet to unfold. As the first light of dawn pierced the horizon, illuminating the darkness of the den, King Darius hurriedly approached, consumed by unease. The decree weighed heavily upon him, and now the fate of Daniel, whom he favored, rested in the balance. He remembered the unyielding resolve in Daniel's eyes and the prayers that had echoed through the realm like a clarion call. With frantic steps, the king stumbled to the entrance of the den and called out in a voice trembling with dread, "Daniel, servant of the living God. Has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Silence hung in the air, hanging like a veil, and for an agonizing moment, the king feared he had been too late. Then, from within the depths of the den, a voice replied, resonant and strong. "O King, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him, and also, O King, I have done no wrong before you." The triumphant words filled the cavern, echoing forth deliverance. Darius rejoiced, overwhelmed with gratitude and relief. He shouted for his servants to bring Daniel up from the den, and as they lifted him from his prison, he saw no blemish upon him, nor a hair of his head singed. The power of the Almighty had prevailed. Witnesses surrounding the scene fell to their knees in awe of what they had seen. In that moment, God's mighty hand was revealed, not only to Daniel, but to all of Babylon. The king, witnessing such an unthinkable act of mercy and protection, declared, "I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men must tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and steadfast forever, his kingdom is the one which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall endure to the end." Meanwhile, the accusers of Daniel, filled with malicious intent, sought to twist their attack into a display of their own power. "Look at what has been done, let the punishment be severe," they schemed. Yet, even as they plotted, the sovereign will of God overshadowed their plans. The very lions that had been instruments of their wickedness now turned upon their masters. The divine judgment was swift and just. They were cast into the den and met their fate amid the same roar that had silenced moments before. As peace settled over the kingdom, and the proclamation of Yahweh's sovereignty spread, Daniel's influence grew. Serving under Darius and later Cyrus, he became a beacon of hope for the exiles, a reminder of the God who saves and orchestrates the affairs of nations. Each morning, as the sun rose over the great city of Babylon, Daniel continued to pray fervently, the flames of faith unfaltering and vibrant. But beneath the solace, an undercurrent of divine mystery loomed. There were whispers among the prophets the time of restoration for Israel was drawing near. What would God bring forth? The exiles, yearning for their homeland, remained unaware of the larger tapestry of covenant unfolding behind the scenes. For it was just the beginning, the world was set upon the axis of the eternal plan. The king would realize one day that Yahweh's purpose could not be contained, nor could the decree of men thwart God's divine promises. In the mighty hand of God rested the assurance of a coming salvation, yet shadows still loomed on the horizon, shrouded in unknown destinies and unseen struggles. The faithful were beckoned to remain steadfast, for the story of Daniel was not merely one of deliverance, but a testament to God's sovereign plan that would echo through ages yet unseen. As days turned into weeks, the awe of Daniel's deliverance resonated throughout Babylon, stirring hearts and igniting faith among the exiles. But there was more to unfold in this sacred saga. In the stillness of the night, as Daniel lay upon his bed, a vision enveloped him, a celestial message laced with profound meaning. In the vision, an imposing figure stood before him, radiant and majestic, the likeness of one of the heavenly host. His voice reverberated like thunder, "Daniel, you are greatly beloved. Understand the words that I speak to you, for they pertain to the end of days and the restoration of the people. As the time draws near, knowledge shall increase, and those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament." A chill ran through Daniel, the gravity of the message weighing heavily upon his soul. "O Lord," he implored, "how shall these things come to pass? What shall be the fate of your people?" The angel lifted his hand, and in that sacred moment, Daniel felt the presence of the Most High. "Fear not, for the prayers of your heart have been heard. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for the holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. In time, the Anointed One shall appear, and through him, there shall be everlasting righteousness restored." Overwhelmed by the gravity of these words, Daniel's heart ached for his people. Would they heed the warning? As the dawn approached, he prayed fervently for the restoration, interceding with sincere cries that echoed through the heavens. It was then that the angel spoke again, "In these days of restoration, hold fast to your faith, for the trial of your people is still at hand. There shall be tribulation, yet, be assured, your God reigns supreme." Meanwhile, in the court of Darius, a sinister plot began to unfold. The satraps and governors who surrounded the king, fueled by envy and resentment towards Daniel, sowed seeds of discord. They whispered of dark omens and misgivings, intertwining prophecies and ancient lore, to cloud the mind of the king. Darius, unknowingly ensnared, began to waver in his faith. "O king," they implored, "the signs are evident the God of Daniel has stolen the favor of the heavens. Cast him aside, lest judgment be upon you." Darius, caught in the web of deception, began to question the divine favor he had so trusted. Unbeknownst to him, this would unveil the profound elements of God's sovereign plan. As the whispers grew louder, there arose a great unrest among the people. They began to murmur prayers of despair, but Daniel, steadfast in his faith, gathered them. "Do not falter," he urged. "For our God is faithful. As he delivered me from the lions, he shall deliver us from this trial. Lift your voices in hope and watch what he will do." The Spirit ignited among the exiles, as they came together in fervent prayer, hearts united, their cries ascending to the heavens like incense. They were a people poised for restoration, their eyes fixed upon the promise of God, yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed. As they prayed, the tapestry of divine intervention began to weave itself tighter. Little did they know that soon, a decree would be issued that would challenge their faith like none before, a decree that would set the wheels of prophecy in motion, drawing them closer to the day of reckoning. And in the ethereal realm, the angels assembled, ready to bring forth the light of God's purpose, for there was a time appointed where all things would converge, a revelation that would shake kingdoms and reveal the depth of his glory. The faithful were called to stand firm, for he was orchestrating a grand design, a divine promise yet to be fulfilled, echoing through the ages. "What will your faith inspire when colliding with the fullness of my sovereign plans?" Daniel awoke with the rising sun, a sense of urgency gripping his heart. The vision of the night lingered in his mind, intertwining with his prayers for the people. As the morning light broke through the window, illuminating the chamber, he gathered the elders of Israel, drawing them close. "O brethren," he spoke with earnest passion, "the time has come for us to seek the Lord with unwavering hearts. For I have received a revelation, the days of our restoration are near. We must not remain silent before the God of our fathers, who is mighty to save us." The elders, their brows furrowed with concern, looked at one another, reflecting on the weight of the message. One of them, a wise man named Hananiah, responded, "Daniel, we have witnessed the wonders of our God, yet fear grips our hearts. The king has been swayed, and the decree against us is upon us. What shall we do?" "Brothers," Daniel proclaimed, his voice resolute, "we must call upon the name of the Lord. Remember the promise he gave to us. As it is written in the book of Jeremiah, then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29 verses 12 to 13. "Lift your voices in prayer, our cries will reach the heavens." As the men gathered, a spirit of fervor ignited their souls. They knelt, raising their hands in supplication, petitioning God for mercy, for strength, for deliverance. Each prayer was laced with the expectation of God's power to intervene. The air about them thrummed with an urgency that transcended their fear, setting into motion a heavenly response. Meanwhile, in the royal court, Darius had unwittingly sealed a decree that would condemn Daniel's people to death. He felt the weight of his hasty decision. Night enveloped the kingdom, casting shadows of despair. Alone in his palace, the king wrestled with thoughts of the faithful Daniel, whose integrity stood in stark contrast to the deception around him. As the echoes of the satrap's whispers haunted him, Darius sought counsel from the edicts of old, grappling with the consequences of his foolishness. "What reputations have I ruined?" he pondered, clenching his fists. "How can I uphold a decree that turns my heart against the one who has served me well?" The king sought the counsel of the wise from among his advisers, hoping for a way to retract his decree without causing further turmoil. Yet, they feigned ignorance, pressing deeper into their schemes, stoking the fire of envy that burned against Daniel. In that moment of conflict, a light shone in Darius' troubled heart, reminding him of the courage Daniel had shown in the face of danger. The king did not pray as the exiles did, but he resolved to protect his friend, for he could not bear the thought of silencing such a righteous man. As dawn approached, the united prayers of the exiles mingled with the heavy heart of Darius. Each cry of anguish, every whispered petition, ascended as a fragrant offering to the throne of grace. Daniel felt the weight of the world upon him, yet his spirit soared with confidence in the Lord's deliverance. Suddenly, in the realm of the Spirit, voices of the angels rang with anticipation, weaving through the heavens. God's plans were set in motion, destined for fulfillment. In that sacred convergence, a promise loomed just on the horizon, a promise that would soon unveil God's sovereign authority over all nations. "Behold," whispered the heavenly host, "the King of glory stands ready to act in a manner that will confound the wisdom of man and illuminate his faithful remnant." With the first light of dawn, a new chapter awaits, testing both the fear of men and the fervor of the faithful. And as the sun rose, illuminating all of Babylon, a divine mystery began to unfold, echoing through the centuries. What greater acts of faith and divine revelation will arise when the hearts of his people are united in prayer against the very gates of hell? As light poured into the city of Babylon, an awe-inspiring stillness enveloped the land. The cries of Daniel and the elders resounded like thunder in the heavens, igniting a fervor that could not be quelled. In the royal court, the weight of Darius's heartache pressed upon him as he entered the judgment hall in the early hour. His soul was heavy with the burden of his decree that would lead to death and despair. Little did he know that heaven was poised to intervene. "Bring me Daniel," Darius commanded, his voice breaking through the silence. He knew deep within him that the faithful servant of the Most High would speak truth, and perhaps, there might be a way to avert the looming disaster. As the guards rushed to fetch the prophet, fear and anticipation mingled in the air, and the satraps, lurking in watchful anticipation, felt the tremors of calamity at hand. When Daniel arrived, he stood alone yet unshaken, his countenance radiant against the darkness of the decree. "O King, live forever," he greeted Darius, whose eyes were filled with a tempest of guilt and dread. In that moment, the tension between the powerful ruler and his favored servant became palpable. "Daniel," Darius spoke, his voice hoarse, "I have found myself caught in a snare of my own making. The decree I signed cannot be undone, yet I cannot bear the thought of condemning you, a man of such integrity and faith." "God has sent his angel to shut the mouths of the lions," Daniel replied, the peace of the Lord surrounding him. "He knows the depths of my heart and the cries of his people. The God of Israel preserves those who trust in him." In the flickering shadows of that hall, the spirit of reverence gripped those who witnessed the exchange. The satraps, cloaked in their robes of wickedness, began to sense the winds of change. In that moment, the king turned with determination. "I must declare a new decree. Let it be known throughout all the kingdom," Darius proclaimed aloud, "that from this hour forward, every person must tremble in fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever, his kingdom shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end." With his heart aflame, Daniel raised his hands in gratefulness unto the heavens, knowing that the Lord's provision was already manifesting. The elders back in the chamber lifted their voices, united in praise, for what they had perceived to be a day of mourning had become a day of deliverance. But the whispers of resistance lingered among the satraps, their hearts hardened against the miraculous work that unfolded before them. They schemed in shadows, plotting to sway the king back to their machinations. Yet, the winds of the Spirit had shifted, and all of Babylon felt the breath of divine favor. As Daniel was honored and elevated, a new hope ignited in the hearts of the faithful, and they understood, when God's people unite in fervent prayer, the gates of hell cannot prevail. And thus, an era began, marked by the bold faithfulness of Daniel and the king's newfound reverence for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "Behold," the fervent assembly whispered among themselves, "what future battles await for those who trust in the Lord? For where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom, the kind that shatters chains and rouses nations." And with that, all who had eyes to see and ears to hear were left pondering the grand tapestry of God's sovereign plan, woven through prayer and faith, yet not fully unveiled. What greater works does the Lord await to accomplish when his people rise to seek him in truth and unity? In the days that followed the edict of King Darius, an unprecedented fervor swept through Babylon. From the smallest alleys to the grandest palaces, the name of Daniel's God was reverently spoken, and the collective hearts of the people began to shift towards faith. The elderly recalled the prophecies of old, spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, for they believed anew that the Lord's plans for them were filled with hope and a future, Jeremiah 29 verse 11. Yet, amidst this divine stirring, the satraps, consumed by jealousy and spite, drew together in hushed conspiracies, their malicious hearts plotting against Daniel and the decree which threatened their influence. They gathered under the shade of an ancient tree, their eyes glinting with cunning determination. "This man whose God is upon him shall not be forgiven," one of them whispered, "for he has turned the favor of the king against us." In this season of renewed faith, Daniel remained steadfast. Each morning, as the dawn broke over the city, he would retreat in quietness to his chamber, unceasingly seeking the face of the Lord, praying fervently with his windows open toward Jerusalem. Each prayer was an incense rising, a testament to his unshakable trust in the God of Israel. The wisdom and insight granted him were like rivers flowing in the desert, vibrant and life-sustaining, Proverbs 3 verses 5-6. Then there arose a solemn day when the satraps approached the king with a new treachery. "O King Darius," they pleaded with feigned humility, "let it be established that for 30 days, any man who prays to any god or man, save unto you, shall be cast into the den of lions." The king, swayed by their words and the flattery of his pride, agreed to this decree, signing it into law unaware of the treachery that lay behind it. Little did he comprehend that it would not be his own glory that would rise, but rather a test of faith that his beloved Daniel would endure. When Daniel learned of the decree, his heart did not falter. "For the righteous are not forsaken, nor their descendants begging bread," Psalm 37 verse 25. He returned to his chamber and knelt before his God 3 times a day. With fervent prayer and thanksgiving, he sought the Lord, his heart ablaze with courage. The satraps watched from the shadows, their hearts filled with malice as they caught sight of Daniel in his faithful supplication. "Now we have what we desire," they seethed with glee, racing to report his disobedience to the king. In a tumult of unrest, the king stood alarmed when the charges against Daniel reached his ears. "I shall not let my decree bring death upon a man of integrity," he declared, but the law was binding, and sorrow washed over him as he understood the gravity of his actions. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Darius ordered Daniel to be brought forth. "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you," were the king's final words as they cast him into the den of lions. The heavy stone was rolled in place, sealing Daniel's fate in darkness, yet hope flickered faintly in the hearts of the faithful. And as night fell, the king, cloaked in anguish, could not sleep, begging the God of Daniel to intervene. In the celestial realms, though unseen, a whisper of determination coursed through the heavens. "For I know the plans I have for you," the Lord declared, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future," Jeremiah 29 verse 11. What deliverance awaited Daniel, and how might this test reveal the unfathomable depths of God's sovereign plan? The very threads of history hung in the balance, each moment steeped in divine anticipation. As the stars twinkled in the velvet expanse above Babylon, a stillness enveloped the city. In the heart of the den, surrounded by the hunger of the beasts, Daniel knelt on the cold stone floor, an unwavering faith tethering him to the divine promise. Darkness encircled him, yet he felt a light within that dispelled fear. It was here, away from the eyes of men and the roar of the lions, that the true strength of his spirit emerged. Meanwhile, King Darius, unable to escape the shadow of his decree, roamed restlessly in his palace, the weight of his decision pressing heavily upon his heart. "Oh, Daniel," he mourned, "may your God save you." A soft whisper of prayer escaped his lips, mingling with anguish as he longed for hope beyond the confines of human law. The hours crept by with cruel slowness, each tick of the clock echoing the king's dread. On the morrow, the dawn would usher in a fateful morning. Hearts beat like war drums in Babylon, some with anticipation and others with dread. The satraps, emboldened by the night's events, gathered in triumph, boasting their cleverness in orchestrating Daniel's downfall. At last, his influence will be severed, they sneered, feasting on their imagined victory. Yet, they understood not the God whom Daniel served, nor the might that dwelled within his faith. In the depths of the den, as the roars stirred around him, Daniel lifted his voice to the heavens. O God of Israel, you are my refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46 verse 1. With a spirit aligned to the Most High, he prayed fervently for deliverance not just for himself, but for the people of Babylon who had begun to turn back to the Lord. Let this moment be a testament to your glory, he prayed, as his heart beat with the rhythm of courage. Suddenly, amidst the hunger and ferocity of the lions, a divine calm settled upon the den. The mouths that once craved flesh were now held shut by the very power that called the universe into existence. Daniel was enveloped in peace, his faith radiant even in the face of darkness. The Lord will fight for me, he whispered, and I will hold my peace. Exodus 14 verse 14. As the sun ascended, its rays pierced the gloom, illuminating Darius' anxious visage. Driven by urgency, he rose early, the faint hope of assurance kindling in his heart. He hurried to the den, where despair and expectation intertwined in his every step. Daniel! He called out, his voice trembling. Servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? A heartbeat seemed to stretch into eternity as silence fell over all, anticipation thick as the tension in the air. Then, as if answering the king's cry, a voice emerged from the shadowed depths. O King, live forever. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths, so they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him. Daniel 6 verses 21 to 22. Joy erupted in Darius' heart as he dropped to his knees, immense relief flooding through him. He understood now, divine intervention had woven a tapestry of mercy over Daniel's trial. Let it be known throughout all my kingdom, he declared, that in every dominion of my realm, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and steadfast forever. And as the edict of deliverance took flight, heaven rejoiced even louder, for the faith of one man had turned the heart of a king and rekindled hope among many. In that moment, the ripples of faith extended far beyond the walls of the den, reaching into hearts young and old, igniting a movement that would shape the course of generations. But in the heavenly realms, a greater plan was being unfolded. For I will restore the fortunes of my people, the Lord proclaimed, declaring promises yet to be revealed. Watch, for the time has come for my name to be glorified among the nations. What other wonders lay ahead, hidden in the expansive tapestry of his sovereign will? As the day broke over Babylon, the sun illuminated the city with a golden hue, mirroring the awakening of hope in the hearts of its people. The word of Daniel's miraculous deliverance spread like wildfire, igniting a revival of faith among those who had been silent. Men and women gathered in the streets, drawn together by a singular cry, "Great is the God of Daniel." King Darius stood upon his palace balcony, his heart swelling with gratitude and admiration. He beheld the throng below, their praises lifting toward the heavens like fragrant incense. In this moment of divine intervention, the thirst for the truth surged through the land. The king declared that a decree be written, proclaiming the sovereignty of Daniel's God across the expanse of his empire. By the might of the living God, he proclaimed, let it be known that anyone who speaks against the God of Daniel shall be torn limb from limb. For he is the one who draws forth from the depths of despair and elevates his faithful to glory. The people erupted in cheers, their voices mingling in a joyful chorus, and the air was charged with a palpable sense of divine presence. Yet, as their celebration blossomed, there remained those who seethed in silence, the satraps and rulers whose envy was not quenched. They whispered among themselves, plotting in the shadows of resentment, for they believed their power lay in the hands of men. They brought forth accusations against Daniel, claiming that he sought exaltation among the people and subverted the king's authority. In the stillness of the night, the king, weary from the weight of leadership, found himself again wrestling with his thoughts. Anxiety clouded his mind. He feared the unrest brewing in the hearts of those bent on his destruction. How could he safeguard the peace now rippling through his kingdom? As he wrestled with these questions, an unshakable resolve anchored him. "I will call upon the God of Daniel again," he murmured. "He alone can grant us strength against our foes." Meanwhile, in fervent prayer, Daniel interceded for his king and the people of Babylon, understanding that the struggle was not merely against flesh and blood, but against the powers of darkness. "O Lord," he prayed, his heart aflame with passion. "Give Darius wisdom, that he may see through the schemes of the wicked. Protect your people, that they might know the joy of your salvation." God's ear was attentive to Daniel's cry, and the heavens stirred even as the earth beneath quaked with the plotting of the wicked. An angel descended, bearing tidings of comfort and assurance. "Fear not, Daniel," the angel spoke, his voice resonating like thunder upon the mountains. "For the plans that the enemy devises against you shall not stand. You are beloved and your faith is a fortification against their wrath." As the days turned into weeks, unrest crept back into the marbled halls of the palace. The satraps, emboldened by their insidious schemes, confronted Darius in his chamber. "You must cast Daniel into the den once more," they demanded, their eyes dark and determined. The king's heart sank as he realized they sought to use their own cunning against him once again. With the evening sun draping the palace in shadow, Darius faced a most bitter choice. He leaned against the stone wall, tears glistening in his eyes. "What must I do to save you, Daniel?" he whispered, knowing well that the decree he had set into motion loomed like a dark cloud over the beloved servant of God. And as Daniel prepared himself once more to face the den, a prevailing peace washed over him. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," Psalm 23 verse 1, became not only his prayer but also the song of his heart. But heaven had yet another revelation to bestow. Little did the king and the conspirators know, a greater wonder was unfolding, for the God who saved Daniel from the lions still had a plan infinitely beyond human understanding. "For a time is coming," the Lord declared, "when the foundations of the earth shall be shaken, and my glory shall be revealed in ways unseen. Hold fast, for my sovereign hand shall work wonders more, be prepared for the unveiling of my purpose." As dusk settled over Babylon, Daniel was led once more towards the den of lions, the shadows growing long and foreboding. Each step he took echoed with the weight of the decree, yet within him stirred an unwavering resolve grounded in the faithfulness of his God. The trembling guards, aware of their peril should they fail in their duty, tightened their grips on Daniel's arms, leading him to the entrance shrouded in darkness. Just before they cast him in, he raised his voice in prayer, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your faithful servant stands before you once more. In your hands, I place my life. May your will be done." Upon hearing his words, the king's heart wrenched with sorrow. Darius, unable to bear the thought of Daniel's demise, cried out, "May your God whom you serve continually deliver you." The firm resolve of the king's heart, wrapped in anxious uncertainty, played against the backdrop of a majestic creation that trembled under the weight of human folly. As the stone sealed the mouth of the den, the sun sank below the horizon, plunging the world into a deepening twilight. The satraps and their conspirators looked upon the event with grim satisfaction, their mouths twisting into cruel smiles. "Let us see if the God of Daniel can deliver him now," they sneered, their voices laced with scorn. Yet, in the den, the lions lay within, their fierce roars muted by a profound stillness. God's hand, like an unseen shield, enveloped Daniel, calming the beasts as he had silenced the storm on the sea. The angel of the Lord stood watch, for no harm would befall his servant this night. Darius, restless and consumed by worry, could find no comfort in the lavishness of his chambers. "Though I may feast, I shall not partake. For whom the lion's feast beckons for justice," he declared, pacing without rest. As night stretched on, the king called upon Daniel's God with a genuine cry, his heart profoundly changed. "O God of Daniel," he implored, "show yourself strong and save him. I long to see the power of your deliverance. Let not my decree fall into ruin, but rise in glory." The morning broke with a caress of light, illuminating the palace and the hearts of its people with a dawning hope. Darius, restless from his vigil, hastened to the den, his heart pounding like the drums of war. He approached the sealed stone with trembling hands and shouted, "Daniel, servant of the living God. Has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" A breathless moment passed, a silence thick enough to burden the soul before the answer rang out from the shadows. "O King, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They have not harmed me, for I was found innocent in his sight." A wave of relief crashed over Darius. "Bring him forth," he commanded, joy igniting like fire within him. And as Daniel emerged, unharmed, the people marveled at the sight. An undeniable miracle had unfolded before their very eyes. Then Darius, heart filled with a renewed understanding, decreed throughout his kingdom, "Tremble before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. He delivers and rescues, he works signs and wonders." The cries filling the streets resounded with vigor as the people began to understand the splendor of God's faithfulness. But unbeknownst to the jubilant crowd and the king, God's plan reached far beyond mere deliverance. The angelic proclamation lingered in the heavens, declaring, "Prepare your hearts. For from the remnants of this deliverance, a covenant shall flourish, and his name shall be exalted among the nations in ways yet to be revealed." As the echoes of joy reverberated through Babylon, the witness of Daniel's miraculous deliverance became a catalyst for revelation and restoration. The hearts of the people, ignited with a fervent faith, turned ever more towards the living God, who had shielded his servant from the jaws of death. King Darius, now a transformed ruler, could feel the weight of God's presence in his kingdom. He proclaimed that all men should worship the God of Daniel, whose sovereignty reigned supreme over all the earth. Daniel stood before the king, a focal point of divine purpose and hope. The sun bathed him in golden hues as he raised his hands in honor to the Most High, knowing full well that it was not merely his deliverance that had shaken the foundations of royalty, but the unwavering love and faithfulness of God that would ripple through the ages. Together with the people of Babylon, he sang a new song, proclaiming, "Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, his mercy endures forever." In the bustling streets, families gathered to recount the tale of Daniel, the man who stood alone yet defied the might of kings through the power of his prayers. Each retelling was imbued with faith, each heart stirred with anticipation for what was to come. They remembered the words of Jeremiah, "For I know the plans I have for you," they whispered, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." The elders of Israel convened, their spirits lifted, recognizing the prophetic whispers that danced among them like flames igniting dry wood. "The time of our restoration draws nigh," Hananiah declared, heart aflame with conviction. The people of Jerusalem were unaware of the revival sweeping through Babylon, yet they would soon partake in the fulfillment of God's promise. "We must prepare our hearts," Daniel urged. "For the God who delivered me is also poised to reclaim the hearts of his people." As the revival continued, remnants of the exiles began to gather, their eyes alight with the anticipation of return. "Shall we not see the promise unfold?" Azariah proclaimed, his voice ringing clear among the congregation. "Let us cry out for the city of our forefathers." Their collective prayers ascended to the heavens, resonating with the fervor of faith. The hand of God was stirring amidst the nations. "For the kingdom of God will not be confined to Babylon, but shall stretch forth as the morning sun," echoed Daniel, urging the people onward. Each heartbeat urged them closer to fulfillment, the promise of deliverance pulsing through the veins of history. Days turned into weeks, and in the temple courts of Jerusalem, a climate of expectancy began to rise. "Fear not," the prophets would remind one another, "for our God has not forgotten his covenant." With each passing moment, assurance grew. The tapestry of God's love wove renewal throughout all nations, binding hearts and igniting souls eager to reclaim their identity as children of the Almighty. Meanwhile, the powers of darkness still lurked, unaware of the futility of their schemes. The satraps, witnessing the ripple effects of Daniel's deliverance, plotted with renewed malice and sought to sow seeds of discord once more. Yet they knew not that the God of Israel, who had thwarted their plans before, would rise once more, a mighty conqueror emboldening his people. And as the fulfillment of prophecies unfolded, a decree was issued, heralding the return of the exiles to Jerusalem. The winds of God's reign began to blow anew, lifting the hearts of his people. "Prepare the way," they proclaimed, filled with the Spirit's fervency. "For the Lord has come to restore." In that pivotal moment, as families packed their belongings, hearts courageously led them towards the promised land, they gathered not just as exiles, but as a community renewed by prayer and fervent faith. Daniel watched, his heart swelling with gratitude. He had become a witness to the profound mystery of God's love that spans generations, uniting hearts in desperate yearning for redemption. "Do not falter," he reminded them all, "for our God is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine. Be bold in faith, for restoration is here." And thus the story of Daniel echoed forth not only through the city of Babylon but beyond the horizon into the realm of eternity, a testament of God's unfailing promises, assuring generations of believers that hope is never lost and that the Almighty's plan remains steadfast and true. Rise up, O Church! The echoes of Daniel's faith invite you to seek his face tirelessly. Subscribe immediately to ensure you do not miss the next powerful biblical stories that ignite hearts and spirits. Like now to spread God's word through the algorithm, allowing his truth to reach countless souls. Share with at least 5 friends who need to hear his promise, that the God who rescues also restores. Act now, for the time is at hand to declare the goodness of the Lord, and join the chorus of faith filling the earth.